What is good, everybody, man? Welcome into the Bluebloods. I told you guys, me and Coach are going to be y'all's late night stop on Sunday night, man. We going to go live in between 9 and 10. My guy, Coach, listen, like I said, to pull off a show like this with an active coach in the middle of the season, man, we got to be kind of flexible on the time. So in between 9 and 10 is where we're going to aim for Sunday nights. My guy, Coach, has a lot to game plan to do a huge non-conference game against Stephen F. Austin this weekend. But guys, we had week 1 college football. Last week was an appetizer. We got the full course this week, man. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to do takeaways, recaps of some of the biggest, most important games to talk about. We're going to talk our winners and losers of week 1. And we're going to talk about some FBS struggles where, Coach, for the first time, I mean, we talk FBS, FCS upsets all the time. FCS teams went 0-42 this weekend against in money games, and the FCS had 3 D2 losses.
Not good.
it was a bad week in terms of that for the FCS, but we'll get to that. Coach, man, huge out of conference game this upcoming weekend, man. A huge week 1. How'd you feel about week 1 in general?
Week 1 in general, man. It's in the coaching world. It's never as good as you think initially, until you go back and you look at it. And it's never as bad as you think until you go back and look at it. And then going back and looking at it, today was a long day for us because we had opportunities. I know the score, some people would be like, opportunities, but we actually had opportunities. And that's one of those things where you kind of get, the hindsight 2020. But, for the most part, the kids fought. We stayed in it for a long time. And then, again, when you're going up a level, you got to be, and I think like me and you talked about off the camera, you got to be almost perfect. You got to be in that 90 percentile of effort, no mistakes, assignment, sharp. And if you go below that, even if you go 89%, it may not be good enough depending on what your money game is.
Yeah, there were some good efforts. Howard's comeback, man, they had Eastern Michigan on the ropes, and that was a team that was pretty good last season. A team we talked about last week, Coach, UAlbany. Okay, I don't want to give them too much credit right now. That team was 1 play away from upsetting a top group of 5 team in Marshall, and they just got done beating Fordham convincingly. I'm starting to believe there's some real smoke behind UAlbany, giving some people some scares in the CAA.
And we talked about that last week. You were like, don't shut the door yet. And now that this happened, looking at that score, I'm like, man, B might be on to something. Let me crack this door because this might actually be something pretty good that we're watching.
So we got a lot to recap. So let's start with just some recapping and kind of talking about some of the biggest games of the week. We're going to get to the game that happened earlier today, later in the show, man, but we got to recap some of the action that happened this weekend on Thursday night. Coach, I want to start here, though. An underrated game for me, Hampton pulling out the win over Grambling State, 35-31, an impressive offensive performance by their new quarterback, Christopher Zealous. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing, had 114 yards on the ground, Coach. When you look at this game, were you more surprised that Grambling's defense didn't perform as well, or were you kind of shocked that it seemed like Hampton took a major step forward offensively?
To me, it was Hampton, because with the numbers you just ran off, and they had 279 on the ground, and like we were just talking about, really with the new college timing rules, that means you're eating up clock, which gave them the opportunity to hold on to that lead that they had late in the game. They almost went for 300 on the ground. That's tough, man.
Yeah, I mean, you look at not just Zealous at quarterback, 114 on the ground, 7.6 yards per carry. You had Darren Butts at running back, over 100 yards. I mean, you average 6 yards per carry with 3 touchdowns as a team. And you look at Grambling, they hit 100 yards. I get it. They got that to 100 yards, but 3.4 yards per carry compared to 6, that's a whole different story. And I just think, I'll say this, Miles Crawley played a hell of a game.
Had nice numbers.
Very nice numbers. He was pretty efficient. He made some really big time throws. I don't think Miles Crawley did anything to take them out of the game. But I'll look at that running back room. I would like to see Chance Williams get a few more touches. That's the one guy who seemed to have a lot of success getting down the field, finding some holes, creating some space. But they only gave him 7 carries. I'm not sure why they didn't make the full move to Chance Williams. He looked like the most explosive running back on that team.
But I think what you just said is the deal what they've got to figure out. Because Miles Crowley, I mean, he nice numbers. He is a guy. Now you've got to decide if you're going to sell out. I think where they've got to, I shouldn't say sell out, but I think they've got to figure out what they want to be, where they want to be with their numbers. Everybody always talks about balance, but you know and I know there's absolutely no way to be 50-50. You got to decide where you're going to be 60-40, where you're going to be at 70-30, whether that's run or pass. And I think with the quarterback that they have, if you're going to go 60-40, 70-30, that's good, but you've got to include those guys in that running back room.
Lyndon Rash as advertised. We know how good. I mean, 8 catches, 90 yards and a touchdown. But I will say, defensively for Grambling, Javon Carter was a surprise. Led the team in tackles, had a tackle for loss and half a sack. Sundiata didn't have a bad game, but man, if you're the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year, I need you to I need more from Sundiata. And listen, some people are going to say I'm hating, whatever like that. They're saying, man, you're being too hard. We're going to talk about a game later where the guy who I thought should have been SWAC Defensive Player of the Year was everywhere on that field. And so there's a standard. When you're the Defensive Player of the Year in a conference, I'm holding you to a higher standard, just like I'm holding Musa, Jarvion, and these guys to a higher standard than I would the average player. I need more from him in terms of he does the basics well, fundamentals amazing, measurables there. I need you to take over a game if you're that guy.
Well, your imprint on the game has to be noticeable. And for him, if it's noticeable to the point that, okay, I'm fighting triple, double, chips, all those type of different blocking schemes are geared to me and everybody else is eating, that's fine. But when it becomes a one-on-one situation, your imprint has got to be all over the game from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, so final takeaways. I mean, for me, Hampton, you're seeing that they're finally kind of starting to get that talent in there. Now, I don't know where they're going to finish in the CAA. Are they going to compete for the championship? I mean, probably not. I'm not going to put it there, but I don't know if they're going to be the bottom feeder where it's like you see Hampton on the schedule and that's a guaranteed conference win. They're going to be competitive. And I think you're seeing that in these out of conference HBCU games, they're showing like, listen, you can look at our overall schedule, our overall success in conference, but bro, we're still playing in a more competitive conference. And when we get in these out of conference games, we're winning. We're beating these other teams that might have better records, but a lot of those wins might be a little bit inflated.
Yeah. And that's, the bottom line, and going back to Hampton before we move on, they are another team, I think, that's got to decide their true identity going forward in that conference, what they want to be. And I think once they settle in to, if you can get close to 300 yards a game on the ground, that's probably where you need to go. Shorten the game, your defense is just fine, and see what happens at the end.
There's some really good running backs in the CAA too. I will say that, like some good running attacks. And Miss Woods in the chat asked, how do we feel about Hampton's quarterback? And we talked about him a little bit earlier. I think, no offense to Mays, the athleticism, the explosiveness, and the energy this kid that Zealous brings to this offense is just different. And I think that's something. Yeah, dynamic. And I will say this: you got to clean up the turnovers. That was a big problem with Mays last year. Is that he was good, but then like things got really bad when he was turning the football over. If you clean up the turnovers, this is a guy who can go win you some games, man. And I love like I said, you can't teach energy that he brings to the offense. Coach, you know what it's like when you have that guy in the locker room where he's playing well, everyone feeds off of him.
When it's positive, yes,
it's
positive and it's going. That's the one guy. Even when it's going bad, that's the one guy that's hey, let's go, and he's doing his thing. I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't teach it and you can't account for it.
No. And, quickly, we won't spend a lot of time on this game, Coach. This is a game we previewed beforehand, and we both picked this team. Montana State doing their thing. Again, I mean, listen, a dominant performance. I mean, can we say anything less? 63-20, Coach, over Utah Tech. And I want to remind people, I forgot to mention this in the preview, Coach. Their offensive coordinator was suspended for this game due to an off-the-field incident. Without their offensive coordinator, Coach, this team put up 407 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, and averaged 7.7 yards per game, led by a true freshman running back that was not a ranked kid. This was not a 3-star kid, a true freshman running back who put up 114, 2 touchdowns, 8 yards per carry.
Over 600 yards of total offense.
Without your OC.
Took it away 3 times. I mean, 63-20, 600 yards of offense, ran for 400, took it away 3 times. I ain't much to say about that.
No, I mean, the positive for Utah Tech, Donnie Fuller, a transfer they brought in this offseason. I wrote about him. He's his advertisement. He really like the leader. I really like Bo Sparks at wide receiver for them. Ricky Johnson did his thing, 9 for 79 and a touchdown. You have some weapons if you're Utah Tech, but you can't have one team run for 400 yards and you put up 49 yards rushing.
No, and you can't turn it over.
Yep, 3 interceptions, Coach, between 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
If they figure out the quarterback, Utah Tech could be good because I think they have great weapons on the outside. Their defense isn't. I don't think their defense is terrible. They're not going to face another rushing attack like Montana State this year in the UAC.
Like that.
No, I mean, and I'll look at Montana State. I'm going to say that because I get it. We're going to talk about North Dakota State, South Dakota State. That game is next week. Everyone's looking forward to it. Montana State, if they go into next week and can run the football, this team's going to be really tough to beat.
Man, I mean, if you get up, it's like the old Nebraska of old. If they run it and they run it well and they get up on you, it's good night, Irene.
There's nothing you can do. I mean, you look, Coach, as an efficiency guy, if I know you're a wide receivers coach, so you would like those wide receivers to get a little bit more chances.
Throw it around, baby.
Yeah, but if you run for 400 yards, have 35 minutes of possession time, and go 9 for 12 on 3rd down, you're taking that.
And twice on Sunday.
Maybe 3 times. I mean, that's so efficient for any offense against a Utah Tech team that I don't think is bad. It's just Montana State's offensive line. When you have that type of depth, you have the depth at running back. We talked about their running backs coming back. The running backs that played last year weren't even the factor. It was the 2 transfer kids that were stepping up.
Right. And again, when you're effective like that, it takes a lot of pressure off of everybody. And defense is sitting over there drinking Kool-Aid. You're chopping up the clock. I mean, again, if they can do this, if they can just do half of what they did, it's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough out when you're talking about Montana State.
Yeah, I was super impressed. Coach, moving to a game, man, I'm really regretting this. This is a game you got on me. You picked right. I was wrong. PV with the comeback of all comebacks.
Frederick.
Hey, he tapped into something that I was surprised because I mean there was a time about late 3rd quarter, Coach. I'll be honest, I almost turned the game off. I was like, this is over. I mean, when Texas Southern outscored them in that 3rd quarter, it was what 34-17.
Yeah, they had.
After that, that kid took it 77 yards. Ladarius Owens. I was like, oh, that's over. But I got to give PV's defense credit because as much as it's an offensive comeback, the defense made key plays over and over and over, whether it was forcing turnovers, whether it was getting pressure on Andrew Body, shutting down the run game. PV made all the right moves. They never blinked. And I don't know, did you have a chance to go? I don't know if you got a chance to watch the live games. I know your game was going on at the same time because I don't know if they showed it on the highlights. There was times where they showed Bubba McDowell on the live, on the live stream or whatever. Man, he never blinked, and his energy was so infectious for that team where they got down, and he was still on the sideline acting like this game was a 1-score game.
And that bled over. I'm glad you said that because when they gave up, when they went down 14, they kept fighting. And that was, again, I didn't see the live. I just got a chance to go back and look at it from, the coach's perspective. and it was just, man, this game's over. And then as the tape kept rolling, you're like, wow, again, we see them early, but my hat's off to PV and, the coaching staff, keeping those kids playing. I don't know what else you can say for that, man. But they fought to get back to get that win.
Yeah. I mean, it's turnovers were a major issue. I mean, because like for me, looking at this game, Trezon played really well. I got to give him credit. He did his thing, 275, 2 touchdowns through the air. The rushing attack, me and you talked to Coach Frederick before the game. He said that running back room was loaded. We knew about Kayla, we knew about Ahmad, but he talked about some of the other pieces. Man, a by committee approach, man. They wasn't a pretty 183 yard, about 3 yards per carry, man, but they just kept grinding out. And this is something we're going to talk about a game later where the OC abandoned the run too early, in my opinion, in a game that we're going to talk about later. But in this game, you saw Frederick say, yeah, we might not be having the success right this second, but I know I can't get away from it because our offense depends on it. And I think there's sometimes where OCs are like, oh, it's not working in the first or second quarter, man. We got to throw the football, and they put their team in bad situations. Just grind it out until you get what you need. And man, they had a few runs, man, where they hit the right hole. They got something they needed here. And I gotta give PV credit, man. They did not abandon their true game plan and their identity.
And that would have been easy to do once they went down 2 scores.
Yeah.
Would have been easy to do. But they're lucky to, the kids' fault. But, for future success going forward, man, you can't go 9 of 20 on third down and expect to win many games. And then on the other hand, unless you're going to take it away 4 times, then that's fine. Texas Southern can go back and look at that. I mean, you can't be, a great high school team turning it over 4 times. It's just not going to work.
This is one. Okay, so I know there's been close games in this rivalry, in the streak of 9 in a row now. This is one, though, that I know can't sit well with the coaching staff on this one. Like, this is one McKinney looks back on and says, that's one we should have had. Like, when you're sitting back as a coach in December and you're looking at your record and you're having like your eval meetings, your exit meetings, you're sitting there looking at that whiteboard and it's like, that's the one that we let get away.
And you can't have that one with the preseason hype that's been going on. You've got to finish that one. Just because now everybody's like, what was the hype? You were up 14, you couldn't close it out. Now the work really begins for coach and his staff because you've got to get those guys back up because you're right back at it next week. And you're down 1-0, 0-1 rather, and you're looking up. There's no room for error right now. None.
I will say both of these teams looked improved from last year, in my opinion.
Don't say it.
I will say this: Texas Southern's defense has improved. I mean, listen, Jacob Williams is a madman for the Tigers. 12 tackles, 3.5 for loss, and 3 sacks. That kid balled out. Michael Atkins too. I really like his game. I love his aggressiveness. He really kind of has emerged as a leader for them. When I look at this game, though, I don't. You never can put it on one player. It's the same thing because you look. Let's take a step back, man, because now we have multiple data points. That Alabama A&M game last year. We know Andrew got hurt. We know that it took out their QB1, but now we kind of have a trend. 2 games in a row, going back to last season. Big second half leads you couldn't finish. That's something I'm going to be looking for Texas Southern moving forward is, can they win the close games? Can they keep that? If they might be a hot start team, but can you finish? That's my biggest question mark with Texas Southern right now because let's be honest, they choked this one away.
Got to be able to close. And especially in games like this, rivalry, conference, division, all that, you got to be able to close. And that's the thing that we stress as well. Good teams close. They find a way to close. And you say you're a good team and you're right there and you're challenging, you got to find a way to close.
Wide receivers looked a little bit improved for Texas Southern. Quay Davis, 7 for 120, a touchdown. AJ Bennett had 2 touchdowns. Dryron Johnson, we know what he is at the tight end spot. Little surprised Derek Morton only put up 1 for 19, though, being an all-conference wide receiver this past season. But I will say there were way too many drops still. There were times where Andrew would extend the play, and I'm going to talk about hit him right in the chest and couldn't come down with it. And eventually it's just like, okay, someone for me, because Andrew had his flaws too in terms of turnovers, but who is going to step up and be wide receiver one where if Andrew needs a play made, I can trust you to catch the football? Because there were times where if he extended the play, the wide receivers didn't help him bail out that situation. And it was, I think I could sense some frustration with that because we heard all offseason how much better the wide receiving core is, and it is better, but man, we still got to catch those passes if you want to compete for a championship.
The little things, and then you have a guy that's giving you an opportunity, like you said, extending the play. You know, those guys, us in that room, we've got to be able to, come up with those. We've got to be able to make plays when they come to us, and then we've got to be able to make the spectacular play when we have the opportunity if we're trying to win a championship, because you need all those things going forward.
And this one too, man. My last thought here, so we can move on, man. Andrew, there was like a tale of like different Andrews for me because we saw, like, we hear all the hype. Me and you talked about it. This was the year for him to prove himself. There was a time like in the third quarter where, I mean, this kid was automatic.
Yeah.
PV didn't know what to do with him in terms of him getting out of the pocket, making all the throws. I mean, 286, 3 touchdowns, has 64 rushing. I mean, they didn't know what to do with him, but it was just down the stretch, he can't make the mistakes that he did down the stretch. And I mean, it's not an indictment on him. I think it's a learning experience where, okay, we lost this game last year. We still had a chance to win the SWAC West. We have to be better down the stretch, man. And I just think it's establishing that consistency, that standard throughout the game, because if he plays like he did through that mid third quarter, man, Texas Southern is going to be a tough team to face each week. It's just a little bit more accuracy, 18 for 38. I want to see that improve a bit. And you can't have 3 picks in a crucial game like this, man. That is wins and losses coming down to those mistakes.
Right. And some of those were, I won't say unforced, but some of those were things that, I'd say 2 of those, if he just eats it, you play another play. And that will come with his growth, understanding when to fold them, when to hold them, and move on. But I get it. This was 9 in a row.
Yep.
So I'm sure he was pressing a little bit. So hopefully, he'll understand the moment and start to settle in. You're up 2 scores. No need to press, man. The best play is the punt in some of those situations.
I will say this. He showed how good of a quarterback he can be, and I think he's due for a big season, probably another all-conference season. The thing with him, though, is I don't know how you feel about this. When you get a guy who's so athletic, who's a gamer like that, you almost have to deal with those mistakes because doing that is what leads to most of his spectacular plays.
Right.
Is that he's so athletic. He will take those risks and they'll pay off sometimes, and we praise him for it. So it's almost as a coach, like, and one of his interceptions, I will say, was not on him, and they hit the wide receiver right in the face and got picked off. Yeah. Just so it really threw 2. You almost have to live with some of his mistakes because you have to allow him to play. So you got to allow him to play within the game. And we've seen that in the NFL where you have a guy who's just so talented. It's like, man, we can't put handcuffs on him because then you take away what makes him so special.
Yeah. I'm never going to, go with putting the handcuffs on. Just, hey, the continuous, communication to him. Hey, do you, but understand the moment. Understand the moment when you're outside the pocket and we're up 14. Understand the moment. First of all, protect yourself, then protect the football, and we'll move on from that. Sometimes the best play is the punt.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, moving to one of the games we preview, Coach, we both picked this one right, man. North Dakota State statement win, 35-10. I mean, what do you want to say? I'll say this. My biggest takeaway is, one, The rushing attack is just as good as it always been. 337, 9 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, and the defense played really well. And I'll say this, Coach. I talked to you about the quarterback
Yep.
that they have. He looked decent. Like, I think Eastern Washington could be a lot. It could be much improved from last season, man. But you got to give this North Dakota State defense props, man. Their secondary was the biggest question mark, and they played really, really well.
Yep. But, again, looking at my notes there, 500 yards of total offense. How many were on the ground?
337.
It takes what? How many yards for a first down?
10. And they averaged 8.6 yards per carry.
That's easy living. I mean, you know what I mean? We can play ball with that. On the other end, again, those guys are not in that program. I feel like they have a lot to prove, and they're going to get back to what their grassroots are, and that's run the football and trying to grind it out on the defensive end of the game, defensive side of the ball.
The quarterback situation is still so interesting to me. I just don't know where to put it because, I mean, you look at Cam Miller, 18 for 24, 174, 2 touchdowns. He ran for 83 yards and a touchdown, 9.2 yards per carry. You only give Peyton 3 throws, but then on the ground, he goes for 104, 1 touchdown on 6 carries, averaging 17.3 yards per carry.
That's absolutely crazy when you look at 17 yards every time he touches it. We got to find more touches. But
I mean, 6'3", 232, Coach, is his size.
That's freaking scary. You know what I mean? But I'm with you on one thing. When someone that can match up with them decides to put 8 people in the box or whatever and say, hey, beat us, you're going to beat us throwing, but you're not going to beat us running the football. How does that work out? So I see your point on that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see just what the rotation is going to be like. How are because for me, I said it before because Cam played pretty well this game compared to what he did last year, but we saw this where he would play good one week and then the next week, man, he wouldn't be able to do it, and they didn't trust him to do it. But the thing that worries me is behind the scenes. I mean, do they not trust Cole Payton to throw the football?
Obviously, there's some hesitation about it.
Yeah.
And we talked about, I think, last show, and I use them all the time. I use this example all the time because I think when you look at it, the old Nebraska, if they were running it and they were doing their thing and they got up on you, you could pretty much say it was over. But if you could shut them down a little bit and go up 2 scores, the game was over for them. So will they be able to come back in situations where they got to throw it? Who's going to throw it? Who do they trust to throw it? I think in those situations they have some questions. But if you go get 500 yards of total offense and over half of that is running it, and you can do that consistently, who cares about the pass, I guess.
Offensive line has some new pieces. They looked really good. I love Cole Wisniewski on the defensive side of the ball. I thought he played really well. Both teams, I think, are going to be good this year. But North Dakota State, like you said, I think they got a chip on their shoulder, man. I'm really looking forward to that Dakota Marker game, man, because that's going to kind of be a telltale sign of what that team is ultimately going to be. But, Coach, another SWAC game here. We both missed this one. Southern falling to Alabama State this weekend on the road. I just got to give it up, man. Listen. We kind of, I don't know. You dropped out when we previewed this game, but you kind of threw in your score prediction. Props to the Alabama State defense, man. They are as advertised again with some new pieces. We knew what Adrian was, Bubba was. This defense is for real, and it's a problem.
What was Bubba's numbers?
Oh, let's see. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. Probably ignorant. 12 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 sack.
We talked about imprint on games. I mean, that guy, all he does is put his imprint on 12 tackles. Think about that. From his position, and everybody knows who he is. So it's like he's sneaking up on folks. He's not in the game plan or any of that. I'm sure he's in everybody's game plan. And to come up with those numbers, impact the game is great. But as you said, I picked the other way just because the running back room that they have, I expect more than 69 yards of rushing.
2.6 yards per carry, coach.
I hope that continues. I hope that continues. But then, the coach in me always says it's two things you've got to win, and that's third down and turnovers. They had 4. And if the team is close to you in talent, you're going to come on the bottom end of that every time.
I will say I'm surprised, man. Kobe Dillon, who was, let's just remember, like he missed last year due to injury. 2 years ago, one of the best freshmen in the SWAC.
Yep.
A 3-time all-conference guy like Gary Quarles, who just came from Alabama A&M. Yep. Nobody had above 30 yards. I mean, the front 7 for Alabama State was a problem. I mean, they were all over the field. You got to give them credit. And then, I mean, Alabama State didn't run the football very well either, which I will say the player of the game. Coach, we talked about him all off season. Keyshawn Johnson. I mean, we're gonna have to have a realistic conversation. He might be the best wide receiver in the SWAC right this second.
He's a guy. He is a guy. He looks it. He plays like it. He is a guy.
9 catches, 107, 2 touchdowns, and Southern didn't have anybody that could handle him in the secondary.
And he's another guy, just like we talked about Bubba, that everybody knows. You know who he is. He ain't sneaking up on you. He's in everybody's game plan, and he still goes for, over 100.
I will say this because I get, because I like to sit back and kind of, I went back and rewatched this game. I saw bits and pieces of it throughout the night. I had a few screens on, but I understand that he didn't do anything like maybe spectacular, and he didn't have to go out of his way. Like he didn't carry the team on his back. I got to give the offensive coordinator for Alabama State credit. He put D. Davis in the best possible situations he could all night. I think when you take a look, I get people want game-changing quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, I'm taking a quarterback in a game plan centered around him, just doing what he needs. Just do your job, and we'll win over a guy who thinks he's got to carry the team on his back and make all these spectacular plays and throw for 400, but we lose. Give me the kid that just goes out here, throws for 180, is efficient in his completion percentage, and throws 2 touchdowns and doesn't turn the football over. Give me that kid over whoever you want every day.
I'll take it every day. And again, like you said, hats off to the coordinator. Again, just kind of brushing through the game. It's like they gave him a few things and said, hey, when these aren't here, that's it. On to the next. And he handled that, and it wasn't a whole lot of pressure. But again, when you have that guy as a receiver that you can just put it close to, it makes life a lot easier.
I will say this, the positive for Southern in this game, that front 7 is as advertised for them Jags.
Oh, yeah, they're crazy.
Jalen Campbell, 15 tackles, a tackle for loss, half a sack. Taj Brown was unblockable at times. Shelby Givens, unblockable at times. I mean, the front 7 is legit. Say that again.
Imagine if they didn't lose those defensive ends they lost. I mean, I'm glad they're gone, but I mean, imagine how salty they could really be.
And they could be outstanding. I mean, and then on the other side, Thomas for Alabama State, breakout game for him as well. And then what was it? Mikey Victor. I heard a lot about him this offseason. He hasn't really proved himself, man. A big interception this weekend too, in a crucial moment. So when I look back at Harold Blood's performance, I didn't think I'm not gonna give him like an F or anything. He could have played better, but the problem is he's the type of quarterback, coach, where if you don't have a run game to help him out, man, it's tough for him to win. He can't do it by himself. He's not that guy. If Southern can establish the run, I think he could be good. But man, once you stop the run game and it became Harold Blood versus that Alabama State defense, that was an unwinnable situation. That's not a matchup I feel comfortable about week 1 in his first start on the road.
Yeah, and a young kid, those looks become a lot cloudier. And like you said, there's no run game. It's you make us happen. Give us some type of edge. And again, I haven't broke him down enough to say that that's not his game, but I think like you said, he's got to be involved with his legs. He's got to have other people to help him in that situation. And if you're averaging less than 3 a carry, that's going to be tough for him, because I don't know if he's got enough years behind him with the pass game to be able to bring you through.
Let me ask you, just from like an outsider's perspective, because I know, neither of us are in the quarterback room. Harold Blood goes out against Jackson next week.
Numbers say no, but history from what they've done in the past says yes.
Because, like, for me, I look at it like this: you have Noah Bowden, who's in there, who started in the SWAC. I mean, he's an option. I just in that type of atmosphere, it's going to be a 6 p.m. kickoff. That stadium's going to be sold out. It's going to be both teams coming off an L. This is a must-win game for probably both of these teams. Throwing a true freshman in there seems so irresponsible.
But that's who you named. I think that's a fine line, because if you don't go and you go with the next option and the next option ain't it, then what? So I serve you this question, and I'm gonna grab my charger because I don't want to duck out of here like I did. Even though this game, it counts. Anytime you play, it counts. And they're selling popcorn. The game is for real. Both teams coming off an L. Who needs it more?
Oh, so I will say, it is a non-conference game technically, I guess. So, and so was Southern Alabama State. So, oh man, this is a tough one because, oh man, it's 50-50 for me.
Conference situation. I know you absolutely hate it.
Oh, it's stupid. The fact that this is a non-conference game is, oh God, it makes me want to, oh, I hate it. But in terms of a must win, oh God, I don't know. I'm going to say Southern just in this case, Coach, because Jackson at least has a win already this year.
Okay.
And also because Southern's playing at home, it's a lot more pressure to win at the house.
Okay.
Too. And I think when you look at Jackson, yes, you already have that conference loss. Oh, it's so tough because who does Southern play? Hang on, I got to look it up. Who does Southern have after Jackson?
I just want to serve that little softball up.
Yeah. No, that's not a softball, dude. You threw like a changeup on me. Okay, so after Jackson, Southern has Alabama A&M at home the next week for their goal game or whatever. Oh, and then Jackson has Texas State, who this weekend beat Baylor by like 3 touchdowns. I mean, that Texas State, we're an FCS show. My guy, G.J. Kinney, I told you guys not to sleep on Texas State. People over in certain areas say that offensive line is weak, that Texas State's overrated. Kinney needs a few years. I'm telling you right now, I told y'all, 2 shows ago, Coach? Yeah. Kinney's going to be the head coach at Texas A&M or Texas in the next few years.
You said it. You said 3 years. You said it.
That man, that's my dude, and I'm telling you, he can coach. Baylor stood no chance. But I'll say Southern by a thin margin, Coach, just because it's a home game, and plus Jackson isn't sitting at 0-1. I mean, going in 0-2 into a true conference game the next week will be tough. So I'm going to say Southern by just a hair. But listen, that's an important game for both teams. And we're going to get to that one right after this one. Last 2 games before we get into our biggest winners and losers of week 1. Quickly, Coach, William and Mary beating Campbell. We both picked this one, but Campbell gave them a little bit of a run for their money now. I want to say that this game was a little bit closer than maybe the score would let on, especially early. Campbell did a really, really good job of moving the football early. Their offense was in this, but man, that strong second quarter from William and Mary really took this game away. Coach, when you look at this game, what were your biggest takeaways?
That's what I'm going to say. The second quarter and that little push right before half, from what I was able to look up and kind of gather, and then they were able to come out in the third quarter and add just a little bit to it. Again, man, this week, I think everybody had a really great game. game plan for the ground attacks because they went for over 300. And if you're running for those kind of yards at William and Mary with that defense that they have, I mean, that's a recipe for a win every time. Because now the other team is put in a speed cycle because they've got to make it happen every time they have the ball, just because you're running the ball so effectively.
Man, Bronson Yoder is the truth.
That's been
came back. Yeah, came back, FCS All-American, 124, 2 tubs, 6 yards per carry. He took the pressure off of Darius Wilson, who wasn't spectacular, but man, like we talked about with D. Davis, he just did his job. 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. That's what you want to see. Hodge played great, man. Got to give it up for Hodge Malik Williams. Came back 22 of 26, 226 in a tub. The offensive line established the run well early, but I feel like down the stretch, William and Mary made the right adjustments to kind of take that away. When you look at defensively, Nate Lynn, as advertised, that game record, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, Pius, 6 for a tackle for loss. And when you look at Campbell defensively, CJ Tillman, coach, anytime your middle linebacker gets 19 tackles and some for loss, you'll take that every week, even in a loss.
Again, like I said, twice on Sunday. That means everything is getting cleaned up, and that also means the big guys up front are doing their job and allowing him to keep clean. I ask you going forward now, and I know we're moving on, where does Campbell go from here?
You have a lot to build on this game. I will say, I think Campbell has a lot to build off of. You have to figure out the rushing attack. Who's going to kind of be your guy? I think the biggest takeaways for them is your defense is good early. You can't let them wear down, though, because what happened is when Campbell was establishing their drives, their defense was playing, but then you start going 2 for 8 on third downs. You allow William and Mary to have the ball for 36, 37 minutes.
I agree.
Not the winning strategy. I don't know if they have the depth to be that team, but when I look at Campbell overall, maybe I'm naive. It just seems like they have so much talent. They have an experienced quarterback. Mike Minter's been there for so long. They have to be decent, right? With all the talent on that roster. Like, I just don't know how they're let's just look at their next few games. At the Citadel, probably a win. They blew the Citadel out last year. The Citadel's new coach. I don't know. Quick topic, real quick. So, did you see the press conference from the Citadel's coach last week?
I didn't.
Okay, I posted on Twitter. I don't want to play because I don't want to get copyrighted. They asked him about his team. He pretty much just came out and said they're trash. He was like, "We're not a good football team. We don't do anything well. We're not going to win anything. We're terrible." And there you go. He was like, "We're not a good football team." And they go, "Is this a motivational tactic?" He was like, "No one." He was like, "I don't need those." He was like, "I'm going to tell you all the truth." He was like, "We're not good."
I got to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But yeah, brutal honesty, positive or negative for a first-year head coach with a new team?
That's got to be negative, man. They don't know you. They're trying to figure you out, and you just came in and told, "Oh yeah, you're trash. You're trash. You're okay. You're trash." I don't think so. Now, unless they had a private talk beforehand, and hey guys, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, but if that didn't happen beforehand, I don't go get any better.
I could just see Fred coming out there. Fred's like, "We're terrible." Like, everyone would be like, "What is going on here?" Could you imagine if a SWAC coach did that tomorrow on the press conference? Like, who lost this weekend? Like, if McKinley came on the call and was like, "We're terrible. I don't like this team. We're not a good football team."
Man, you talk about breaking the internet.
Oh, that's why it happened at the Citadel. If that would have happened at like a MVFC school, a Big Sky, or someone like, man, that would have been viral.
Breaking the internet.
Yeah, but man, coach, game of the week. You got it right. I got to give you your props, man. Collapse on that. You picked this one right. I thought it was going to be a close game. Man, FAMU statement. The statement of the week. I mean, we coming into this game, let's put it in perspective. Jackson, long win streak over FAMU, has been the only team in the SWAC to beat the Rattlers since they joined the conference. Kept them out of the championship for 2 consecutive seasons, a 59-3 embarrassment last year. all the talk, all the hype that led up to this. You got Jackson players on HBCU game day saying they're going to go out there and do whatever to FAM. The hype was there. 28-10 win over Jackson, man. 28-0 lead in this first half. 21-0 lead in the first quarter. Return the opening kickoff. Coach, takeaways from FAMU's impressive win.
They have a special kid, and when he touches the ball, it can be trouble. And that's in the kickoff game. That's a punt game. Special teams set them on track for a very impressive day. I don't know if there's been a better first half, especially, I mean, young in the season, no doubt, but that first half was as impressive as it gets.
It almost felt like Willie Simmons and that team, from the opening kickoff to the end of the first quarter, they let out frustration from not 365 days, from over 700, 800 days in a row of 2 years of we were 1 point away. We got beat down last year. This was the hurdle of all hurdles, the wall we had to run through. And man, they can't. I'll say this: the biggest difference I saw in this game, before we get into really the X's and O's, FAMU came out with an energy that Jackson just couldn't match.
Yes. FAMU came out, and I don't want to use the word, but I got to use the word. FAMU came out as a team that was desperate from the start, and they didn't let up until maybe mid-third quarter, something like that. But that first quarter, oh, they were relentless. They weren't, I mean, on both sides of the ball, special teams, offense, defense, defense, they just played harder. To me, they just played harder.
I think the biggest thing, the opening kickoff was, man, they blocked everyone up. I mean, I don't know if there was a dude who even almost touched Marcus Riley on that run. I will say the thing that was impressive for FAMU was the physicality of the defense at the line of scrimmage in particular. I'll say this. I mean, I got some criticism for FAMU too on this game because I didn't like how they played the second half, but that's a whole nother conversation. The first quarter and the first half, they dominated both lines of scrimmage on each side of the football. I mean, you look at, I mentioned his name. I know you jumped off the call, Coach, because your phone died. I mentioned this kid, Anthony Dunn Jr. That's the guy that everyone said was going to be the next. I mean, there were people at FAMU saying he's better than Isaiah Land. He came out today, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 total tackles, was getting pressure, was dominating the edge. And then you look, Gentle Hunt, 4 tackles, a tackle for loss. Andre Powell Jr., Dre Jones had a good game. They were better at the line of scrimmage. And this was something that we talked about last week. The offensive line, especially that left side, is a concern for Jackson.
Yes. And then, again, you've got to meet your opponent's intensity. And FAM's intensity was on 10. And I think, again, this is just me, FAM played like a team that was desperate, that wanted it. And I think Jackson was more of the team that we know what's going to happen in the end. And it just did not ever turn on. Again, FAM set the tone from the start, man. It's tough to get that momentum back.
I will say, though, it's hard to be critical in such a big win like this, but I was not super impressed with the offense after the first quarter. It was like they came out with all this energy, but then it was like gone. Like they used it all up, and then it was kind of like cruise control. By then, I'll be honest, after the first quarter, I don't think Musa played a great game overall. I don't know how you feel, but like 12 for 22, 150.
Missed 2 touchdowns.
Bad.
Yeah, this could have been a lot worse. He missed 2 throws to be expected. Guys running wide open. I think, and you've played, you know, when you get up like that, and it's tough to keep that focus. You got to have serious leaders on your team. Not saying they don't have leaders, but you got to have serious leaders on your team to keep everybody focused. It's not like, okay, we're up 28. let's take our feet, take our foot off the pedal. And I think that's what it looked like to me. But again, not saying Jackson didn't turn it up in the second half. It just looked like FAM just kind of let up just a little bit.
Yeah, and someone in the chat said he missed 3. He missed 2. The third one was the one they called back for Holden on the wide receiver, the screen pass to Shareed, I want to say. Yeah, he got caught the wide receiver. Listen, if you're a 6'5" wide receiver, stop grabbing.
Yeah, I don't need to.
You're 6'5".
And I'm gonna go get the ball.
Gosh, it killed me that they called that one back. Like, that was such a dumb penalty. But I will say, Coach, we talked about this game. Last year, FAMU ranked last in the SWAC in rushing.
Yep.
207 yards on the ground, 5 yards per carry, and their 2 starting running backs both averaged over 6.5 yards per carry. That is how that's winning football. And that was the biggest thing missing, in my opinion, from their offense last year, is that, yes, it was Musa and Xavier because they could not run the football. They did not run the football. And you look at the offensive line, Goss came back, Coven came back. They added Cardell Thomas at guard. They had a lot of returning pieces. They absolutely, there were times where Devontae Davis, Jeremiah Williams would play well at defensive tackle. They dominated the line of scrimmage all game long, and Jackson could not stop the run. And I talked about this on the preview show, Coach. Last week, Peppers played really well, but there were times where South Carolina State caught Jackson's linebackers out of position, out of gaps, and they did not fit the run gap well. That cost you ball games, and you saw it this week. There were times the linebackers were in the wrong place, and FAMU exposed that.
Especially late in the game when they were trying to get the ball back, and those backs from FAM were running extremely hard to close the game out. That's a part of the game that they didn't have last year. You're right. In order to close it out, had to get first downs, consecutive first downs to ensure your win, and they were able to do that. They took control again. I think the last 2 series, up front, offensively, and if they can do that, it'll be them versus us in the championship game. If they can continue that. Those are big guys back there with the football. And again, you have those pieces that came back up front. That's something that should be expected.
Yeah, look, Rico Powers had the best game at wide receiver. I really wasn't impressed with a lot of the other receivers that Jackson put out there. I think FAM did a really good job coverage-wise. And also, the best way to get to a quarterback, hit them. Even if you don't get the sack, hit the quarterback. And they had Jason Brown seeing ghosts out there.
Just touch him. But 2 things I want to hit on. 2 for 14, third downs, not going to get it. I don't care what it is, not going to get it. And secondly, me and you talked about it. Was it really JSU or was it South Carolina State?
Both, I think. I still think it's both. And we'll get to this when we get to the winners and losers. The bottom of the MEAC is going to be they might be the worst bottom half of the conference in FCS football. Including South Carolina. They're going to be atrocious. But I think it's a little bit of both. It was a bad matchup. I don't think South Carolina State matches up very well. And I really do think when I look, so I know you were off. If anyone in the chat remembers, I said there were 3 things I was going to be looking for. I said the winner of this game was going to win the rushing battle. You had to run the football. Whoever led the game in rushing, whoever had the least amount of turnovers, and whoever was the most, and whoever got to the quarterback the most this game. FAMU checked all.
It's a game of numbers. You hit it on the head right there. And that was what I think they did to South Carolina State. Again, like you said, the matchup. I still don't know, outside of the one receiver that FAM has, I don't know if they have enough to just go back to what you said you hated the most, them just being a completely pass-dominant offense. They may, but this game, I don't think they exactly show. But the one kid is special, no doubt about it.
Shareed?
Yeah, he's special. Absolutely special. Now, I think the interesting thing about it, and I'll wait because I think we're going to touch on this in the winners losers. So I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to stop right now.
So the question becomes, I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna have to call some people out on this. Last week, there was a lot of talk about Jason Brown being the best quarterback in the country. Now there are some conversations that there are some fans that don't want him to even start next week.
So there's
For
a
you, say that again.
so there's a battle. There's a controversy.
And I mean, so I got to ask you, Southern on the road next week in a must-win game. Who are we putting out there at quarterback?
If this is Bluebloods U University, we got to go, and here's why. We got to go back with JB. We got to go back with him. The experience. I think it's a totally different game, and we got to set the tone, and we got to get everybody back to a comfortable place. But the margin, the rope, is really, really, really short. But I think you got to have 2 game plans ready, because you pull him, you've got to have something different for your other guy, just because they're 2 different guys. You can't expect your other guy to come in and just drop back and throw a 75-yard touchdown and it's going to be, great. What was that kid doing? Anyway, that's a whole nother story. That's not going to happen. So you've got to have something that he does well, and you got to have enough of it to be able to get through a game if Jason Brown doesn't play up to standards. So if this was Bluebloods University, I think we run him out there, but it's a real short rope.
And I know some people in the chat are saying that he might be injured. Now that's a whole different. If he's hurt,
That's
you
different.
obviously have to go somewhere. Like that's different. I'm talking about.
And I remember the
If
play, but he kept playing that play.
yeah, like and I listen. I don't like Skip Bayless, but I do agree with his point. If you're hurt, stay out of the game, because if you go back in, I'm judging you based as you were healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
If you're healthy enough to keep playing, you're healthy enough for me to judge your performance accordingly.
Yes. And like I said, I remember the play, and I know that, that area, that's sensitive. I get it. And if it was, you can't feel your arm, you can't feel your hand. At that point, you got to understand that, okay, I know the competitive juices are flowing, but I'm only hurting in this situation. I can't help because I'm not. We live and learn, we get better from it, but I just don't think that you say that was part of the problem now, if it wasn't part of the problem during the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the thing that worries me, okay, so I'm going to say this. If he's even a little bit hurt, you don't roll them out there against Southern, because, man, we just saw what their defensive line did to Alabama. I mean, Southern has a really, really good defensive line, especially getting pressure from the interior, man, with Taj Brown and Shelby Givens and all those guys. That's a. Yeah, I think you're frozen on my end, Coach. Here, jump back in and jump back out.
You back?
Hell, I'm gonna try to text. Hang on, Coach. I got you.
Hey, are you back, B? I can't hear you.
Well, hang on. I just texted Coach, and we're gonna try to get him back. I think he was frozen on his end. Let me know if y'all can hear me good. There we go, Coach. You got me?
I got you back.
All right. Yeah, I didn't know which one of us it was, but yeah, like I'm with you. I don't know if you heard me, but huh?
You're gone again.
Oh man, hang on. All right, you got me now? Okay, so they're saying they can hear me. I don't know if all right, I'm gonna keep going. Coach, if you can hear me, man, drop out and like hop back in the stream. But I'm gonna keep rolling. So yeah, I'm with Coach on that, where if he's hurt, you got to keep him out in terms of
We dropped.
you have to keep him out of that game just in case he gets further injury, because you got to play for the conference championship at the end of the day. So you have to keep him out if he's hurt. And I'm interested to see. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel. Zy McDonald is somebody who, I mean, could be that starter, but I know a lot of people do want to see the Syracuse transfer come in. I I don't know how you guys feel. If it's not Jason Brown, do you guys put Zy McDonald in, or do you want to try the Syracuse transfer in there and see what he can do? So that's the one I'm interested to see. I will say the positive. Let's see. I think I got Coach back right here. Let's see. Oh, he's still connecting. The positive for Jackson, though, Irv Mulligan is legit at running back, man. That kid runs so hard. He's so efficient. 4.8 yards per carry, 77 rushing yards, and apparently Morgan's hurt, so that's not good. Coach, you got me? Coach, you there? While Coach gets his stuff back, man, real quick, though, the perfect time for this ad read. Listen, man, year 2, you guys already know what it is. DraftKings sponsoring the show. Listen, shout out to DraftKings, promo code Bluebloods. Listen, we've had 7 months without an NFL game. It starts this weekend. The NFL is finally here, man. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you 2 can't-miss offers for week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you just bet $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get, man. Download DraftKings now. Use code Bluebloods, all caps Bluebloods, to sign up. New customers can take home just $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5, man. That's code Bluebloods, only on DraftKings Sportsbooks, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, guys. The crown is yours, man. Make sure to go get DraftKings this weekend. But man, this week, while I wait for Coach to get back, man, we're going to shift to the next topic because FAMU, huge win, man. I'm excited to see what they can do. I want to ask you guys, did you guys see enough from FAMU this week to say they are the favorites to win the SWAC still? That's what I want to know. That's what I want my takeaway to. That's what I want to see what your guys' opinions are. Did FAMU show enough outside of the Musa struggles in the second half to win to win the SWAC this year, man? Is this the year FAMU finally gets it done, man? Because I think outside of Musa, man, they checked off a lot of boxes for me. Defensive line looked really good. Isaiah Major and Jordan Moore were great at linebacker. Their secondary played extremely well against the Jackson State passing game that last week, man, was unstoppable at times. And the offensive line rushing games there. If Musa I think I saw someone even comment this. If Musa does what he's supposed to do, FAMU should win the SWAC this year, man. They're going. This is the year. You've got a 1-game lead over Jackson now. So with Jackson, you have to have FAMU lose 2 conference games and Jackson win out in conference. That's what's going to have to happen now. So I'm very interested to see. I think they have a very interesting game with PV on homecoming. They got, I want to say they have Southern this year as well. That's going to be a huge game. I'm very interested to see how good FAMU could be, man. Let's see if we got my guy Coach back. Coach, we back? Oh, man. Let me text Coach real quick.
Oh no, sound like T-Pain. Can't hear you.
I just sent you a text, man. I'll let you do that real quick. I'm gonna get Coach to reset his phone. Wait, hang on. We got you now? We back? Oh my gosh, Coach. Well, my guy Coach gets that figured out, man. I'm gonna get him to restart his Wi-Fi and all that. But I want to say this: winners, losers of week 1. Now, this could be teams, conferences, players, any of that. I'm gonna start here. My biggest winner of week 1, Morgan State. I don't know if my guy Banks is still in the chat for the show. Morgan State knocks off number 18 Richmond on the road. Only the second CAA win for a MEAC team in, I want to say, 32 attempts. Coach, we got you back now. You look. There we go.
I don't know what's going on with my C Spire connect, but okay.
All good. Hey, you're back. You're back. So let me ask you the question before we move on, because I was just getting into Morgan. Your take. I mean, so did FAMU check off enough boxes for you? I won't ask you the main question because I know you guys are in the other division. Did they do enough to prove that they are the bona fide favorites in that division this year?
Early, yes. Late, no. Just because of that start and the way they just kind of handled that first half, I would be 100% all in. Second half, not so much. And again, I don't know if it's because they pulled back because they started out so fast, or everybody settled in and it became real football, so to speak. So I'm about 70% in on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Musa development is the next step, and also finishing games. We talked a little bit about that with Texas Southern, but man, I'll start with my one of my week 1 winners, Coach. Man, we'll get through this quickly. Morgan State, obviously, knocking off number 18 Richmond on the road. I said, before you jump back in, only the second CAA win for the MEAC in 32 tries. Going with Central last year, knocking off New Hampshire, who was also a top 25 team. They did this, Coach. 7 for 13 passing for 99 yards. No passing attack. They only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. No offensive production whatsoever. But I will say there is a strong argument, Coach, that right this second, Morgan has the best defense in HBCU football.
All right, no doubt. And I had it wrote down right here that Richmond won every stat but one. Right here, I had it wrote down. And that was the scoreboard. But again, when you play D and you're checking off, all those boxes, like you said, man, those bounces, come your way, and you just have to be ready for them. And Morgan got some bounces, and they were ready for them, and they came out on top.
Lawrence Richardson, 12 tackles. Eric Hunter, the other linebacker, 11, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, a forced fumble. All-American Elijah Williams from the edge spot, 8 total tackles, 2 for loss. They were getting to the quarterback all night. They were forcing turnovers, and they never blinked. Yep. Even regardless of how bad the offense was playing, because we see this all the time. We talked about this before the show. When the offense is playing that bad, it wears the defense down, almost like it becomes harder for them to play well. This Morgan State defense, to me, seemed almost motivated by it. We're going to go win this game because of us. We're going to get better and better. And they're just so deep that really and truly, I never saw a time where Morgan looked out of this defensively. They never seemed to I was expecting them to wear down in the wrong time and Richmond to score that last touchdown. But it actually was Morgan who made the play to win the game late in the ball game. Man, you got to give them credit because, man, Richmond's defense played really well. Tristan Wheeler, 17 tackles, 3 for loss, and a sack. He did his thing, but neither team had any offensive consistency, and it was just which defense made enough plays to win. Morgan with 5 sacks. Man, you got to give them their credit.
5. That's a huge number. And you're right. When you're sitting there on that defensive bench and you just sat down and then you get that punt team, what just happened? I just sat down. And for those kids to stay mentally in the game, stay in the team mode, and just hang around, like you said, and just make enough plays defensively, it speaks volumes for what they got going there, man, defensively, no doubt about it.
If Morgan can find a way to be more consistent offensively, they're an issue in the MEAC.
Oh, with that defense, if they can find a way to get to 20, I think they give themselves a chance every week.
So, Coach, I'm gonna throw it to you, man. We'll go back and forth, man. Give me one of your week 1 winners right here.
Alabama State, man, because that was, to me, 14-10. When you say statement wins, I know you think about a dominant performance, but they were able to pull off a big victory at home, uh, being the underdog at home. And I think that just does a lot for their confidence because Southern is ranked very high on the West uh, team to beat, and they did it.
Yeah, I give you that one, man. Another team in Alabama, though, I'm gonna give them their props. North Alabama getting their first win in the Brett Dearman era. We talked about them last week because they're one of the week 0 games, and we asked this question: was Mercer just that bad and they struggled and they were trying to find their identity, or is North Alabama a lot better than people gave them credit for? I think it might have been the second one because they came out here and beat a Chattanooga team that was receiving top 25 votes and was really on the bubble for the playoffs last season.
Yeah, we're not talking about the bottom feeder. We're talking about a good ball team. Uh, I would say that they were, and I don't know for sure, but I would say that they were the underdogs in this situation.
Yeah. By a lot.
You know what I mean? I would have took Chattanooga in this situation, but again, I said it last week. As they say, the old saying is, you get better between weeks 1 and week 2. So it looks like they're improved and they settled in on what they want to do.
And I got to give them credit for this. They jumped out really early to a lead. I mean, they built a massive league. I mean, a lead, and it looked like they were going to kind of run away with it. And then they gave up some big opportunities. I mean, they were up 21-0, and they got back. It was 27-27 late in the fourth quarter, and they still found a way to make those late plays. And as a wide receiving coach, I know you have to love TK Kennebrew. 5 receptions, 172, and 3 touchdowns in the first quarter.
172, 5. You know, that's a crazy number, and they weren't all bombs. But you're talking about a guy that can get you yards after the catch. That's the guys I want, man. That's the guys that every receiver coach wants. A guy that don't have to go 80. He can turn around and catch it at 5 and do the rest for you. And that's the quarterback's best friend.
You got to love it. They did a great job kind of controlling the running attack of Chattanooga behind an All-American and leaning forward. And then on the flip side, we saw DeMarcus Lacey last week have a good game, 75 yards this week. But then Jalen Daniels comes out of nowhere, 8 carries, 147 yards, and 2 touchdowns, averaging 18 yards per carry this week. When you have that type of weapon, man, it makes it easy as a play caller, doesn't it?
Oh, I can take the pressure off my quarterback. I know I can get, maybe not 18 yards every time he touches it, but I know he has the ability to do that. So it makes it a lot easier. You're right.
So, Coach, your other winner for this week, man.
Man, my other winner, and I'm going to stay where it's at, man. Coach Willie Simmons. FAMU, it's the old Steve Young thing, where he took them and pulled the monkey off his back finally. Big time. Team was ready from the jump. It got a little stale there. They were able to hold on. They are 10 straight wins. Again, hats off to them. That's my other big winner.
Yeah, that you took mine. It was FAMU, and Willie Simmons was my last one. I mean, we talked a little bit about it before you had to drop off last show. The pressure was so immense on Willie Simmons. And I really do think when you look at the energy his team came out with, they felt it.
Yeah, they knew.
They knew how much this meant to him. And I think, I saw a little bit of the post-game press conference. Tomorrow, I'm very interested to see his media availability because, I really do think it's going to be like talking to a guy who, I mean, just like got his life together, just got out of a bad relationship, cleaned out his social media. I mean, he's probably going to feel 1,000 pounds lighter on that press conference on Monday.
It's going to be a lot easier than
Tuesday, because tomorrow's Labor Day.
Yeah. If it had been the other way around, it's going to be a lot easier than it would have been, no doubt.
So, Coach, it's always tough to have this conversation. I get it because fans hate this. The losers of week 1, man, kick it off.
I mean, again, Texas Southern. There was so much hype.
Stole mine again.
I mean, there was so much hype, man, behind it. The hype machine was in full effect. Uh, we stopped short of the Heisman Trophy campaign. Cutouts for the quarterback. To be up 14 points and give a game back. I think that has to be one of the biggest losers.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's not because they can't rebound. It's just I've seen this happen where week 1's so important, it's so big, you lose in that type of way, and it sets your season off on a bad course. Like, the biggest thing for Texas Southern is rebounding, and the tough part is they got 2 FBS games in a row after this.
And I think you called it out last show about the schedule and how important that was to try and get that, because now you are putting yourself in to be possibly 0-3. And now the morale and the mentality, who knows what happens now when you're talking about 18 to 23-year-old kids.
Yeah, and it's going to be so important on the leaders of that team, not the coaches necessarily. The leaders of the team in the locker room got to step up. You got to get these guys focused. And even if you don't win the next 2 games,
got to be
just
good.
see, yeah, I need to see those steps forward. And then once you get into conference play, you better start reeling them off, because now you can't lose another game in conference and expect to be at the SWAC championship at the end of the year. You got to start reeling off some wins now
for all the marbles every week.
Yeah, I mean, and moving on from this one, Coach, I hate to do this because I know Morgan had a big victory. Central, did their thing against Winston-Salem. Howard had a solid FBS game. The MEAC's still a loser this weekend.
Oh, ain't no doubt.
2 Division II losses this weekend, both by more than 1 score.
No doubt. No
What
doubt.
is going on? Like, so just to put it in perspective, Bowie State 22-11 win over Delaware State, and it should have been worse. I've watched some highlights of that game. That Bowie was the better team, and that is not acceptable. And then Virginia State beating Norfolk State 33-24.
And Norfolk State had a chance to win that game. But it's funny you bring that one up, because I remember you saying, you don't get this one, it's going to be tough. So now it's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But again, when you schedule those games, you got to understand what you're scheduling. And Bowie State ain't one of those games that you want to schedule. Not that you run from anybody, but again, what's your game there if you win that game?
Yeah, I mean, because I'll be honest. Okay, I don't know how you feel. The D2 loss is bad regardless. Same for Valley losing to Central State this weekend. That's a whole nother story. Bowie is a bona fide contender at Division II. Like, you lost that game, unacceptable, but you lost to a good team, bro. I no offense to Virginia State fans who might watch the show. What are we doing, Norfolk?
Can't do that.
Yeah, like a 9-point loss to Virginia State.
Yeah, and we're not talking, like you said, powerhouse. And again, no disrespect to them, but I mean, you're not talking about a annual Division II playoff program. You're not talking about that. You cannot. I don't think you can take that one, especially not at the house.
No. And now you're looking at, okay, so two Division II losses for the MEAC right now, 1 for the SWAC, and next week Valley travels to Delta State.
And we know what happened last year.
Oh God. And let's not forget, Tuskegee is not a bad team, and they got a few SWAC teams on that schedule. Like, I mean, there's a chance the SWAC could have 5 to 6 Division II losses in 2023.
I mean, let's hope not, but there is a chance.
Or no, my bad. The MEAC and SWAC combined, not just the SWAC 5. Because if you lose 5, yeah, because
you're right.
That can't happen, guys. I mean, I get it, and I know some people. There were some people who were mad at me because I'm in the HBCU nightly chat, and I made the comment. I was like, "This is ridiculous." And listen. There's some D2 people that support in there, and they're like, "Why don't you give any credit?" I feel the same way. I'm an FCS guy, and I root for FBS upsets every weekend. I always root for the FCS team. Those teams, you can't lose that game either.
Yeah, and it's not about giving them credit. I mean, everybody knows Bowie State is a great, a great program. It's not about giving them credit. It's about the levels, and you're supposed to have and I put it in simplest form. You're supposed to have enough bodies to outlast Bowie State, even if it is close. Uh, in the first 11, you're supposed to go another 11. They can't. They shouldn't be able to go another 11. If they go another 11, you're supposed to be able to go at least another 5 or 6. And you know they're not supposed to be able to go another 5 and 6 when we're talking players. You're supposed to outlast them or wear them down, is what I say, what I think. And that's just at the simplest form. But it's not about not giving them credit. It's just about what we say when we're talking about FCS playing FBS. They have more. It's a better situation. So, again, I can't pay you money for you to come beat me up. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, and at the end of the day, I do think. I mean, people have talked about this. If Bowie had the resources to invest, they could play at the FCS level. Like, I don't think, and I don't think that's the conversation because I look at not Fort Valley State. Was it Grand Valley or whatever? Like the powerhouse of D2, and then you got Ferris State, and you got West Florida, Valdosta. If they had some resources, those teams could compete at
the level.
Yeah, like the Southland would be wrecked by Valdosta State the past few years. So I'm not saying that there's not good D2 teams, but man, you still got to win that game, man. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But coach, give me your last loser, man, before I give you my last one.
Last loser. Again, I go back to the hype machine. Grambling State, man. We've seen them all season. And again, we want the spotlight. We want to do all that, and you're advertising as such. You got to be able to go and get this win. You got to be able to get this win.
I'm with you. I picked them, and it's funny. Okay, you'll laugh at this. I called someone on my way back from Nichols on Thursday night, man, and we were talking about my predictions. I wrote them up and was getting ready to release them, and I was like, because me and you usually do the show on Thursday, but because I had that game, we moved it up, so I didn't have time to do. Like, I got my full research process, and I was like, man, I finished my writing, and I was like, why did I pick Grambling? and this person could comment on the show afterwards. I was like, I got a feeling I messed up there. I was like, why did I pick Grambling? I was like, man, I should have picked Hampton. I was like, but you know what? I said it, so I'll stand behind it. And now looking back, I'm like, should have went with my gut on that one. I was sick on that pick. But coach, my last one, gonna throw up because I know Jackson fans probably thought they were gonna be in this segment. Montana.
Oh.
They won by 15, coach. So you might be asking why they're in my losers for week 1.
Yeah.
They played a non-scholarship school in Butler at home.
I forgot about
only that. Won 35-20 and struggled a lot of the game. And I mean, I'll be honest. So I'm kind of holding them to a higher standard. They gave up 300 plus yards to Butler, struggled in the passing game, had 2 turnovers, and they really didn't put them to bed at all. They let Butler hang around. They did well against the running game, but your starting quarterback went 180, a touchdown, 2 picks. Your other quarterback, who was a Southern transfer, and Clifton McDowell, was 1 for 3 for 5 yards, but had 80 yards rushing. Outside of Eli Gilman and Junior Bergen, I didn't see a lot of positives offensively for Montana. And when I look at what Montana State just did to Utah Tech, who's a much better team than Butler, what I've seen from, I mean, even Sacramento State against Nichols, they show some promise. Weber State has, I mean, there's so many good conference. Idaho, dominant performance on Thursday night. Where does Montana fall? And like, for me, submitting my top 25 ballot tomorrow, I think you got to give them the benefit of the doubt because we'll see how they improve. But I really question how good of a team Montana is. And I mean, where do they fall in a loaded Big Sky pecking order?
And that's going to be tough to see because, like you said, tough sledding for them. And then they have a big matchup coming up as well shortly. You threw me for that one, but then it makes sense. Butler is non-scholarship. This should have been I won't say 63-20, but it should have been a little better, a bigger margin than what it is.
If you're a top 15 team, you're a top 15 team at home, you blow out non-Scotty teams.
That's got to be 28 or better.
Yeah, I agree. So, Coach, the last one here, man. We talked a little bit about the D2 struggles, man. We're going to wrap this one up pretty quickly. We went an hour and a half, but we had a lot to talk about. 0-42 against FBS this weekend.
And we
no
don't.
FBS wins, 3 D2 upsets, courtesy of the MEAC and the SWAC this week. For you, we hear this thing about the transfer portal makes everything even. Like, and I think Sam Herder made a good point. We try to identify trends. Like, is the number going to go up? Is the talent gap decreasing? I think there's a thing where there's been such a trend of upsets at the FCS level for FBS that teams are very particular on who they schedule, when that game's played, and how they approach that game. I really do think this FBS teams, group of 5 teams, they're not letting FCS teams tiptoe in there and catch them off guard anymore. There's too many examples of someone getting smacked in the mouth, like Colorado State getting beat 41-10 last year by Sacramento State, where FBS teams are like, bro, we're not about to pay y'all to come in there and give us a 31-point beat down in front of our home crowd. I mean, when you look at it, Coach, I mean, 0-42 is shocking. Let's just be honest. I mean, do you see a trend, or do you think it's just, there weren't any great, FCS, FBS matchups?
There were great matchups. I don't think it will ever be 42-0, but it shouldn't. I don't think it should ever be 0-42. And then it goes down to, like you just said, the most important thing is the matchups. What are you going to take? What are you not going to take? Who are they going to schedule? Who they won't schedule? We had a favorable matchup with the up game that we had this week. It was doable. Now us going to Tuscaloosa, probably not as much. So it's all in the matchup, and then I think it's all in what you do with that matchup, so to speak, and having an understanding of who it is. Again, it's like us scheduling down. That's something that should be strategically done if you're going to do it. If I'm ever the head coach at Blue Blood University and we are FCS, we ain't scheduling the number 1 ranked D2 team in the country. We're not doing that. Not that we're scared or we're running from anybody, but that does us no good to beat them. We beat them, we're supposed to. We lose, it's what happened. So, yeah, I think it's all in the matchup and what you schedule. And as an FCS school, I get it, but I don't get it. We're struggling for funds, for funding or whatever. I'm not going to schedule you and pay you to come in here when I know I'm kind of in the red anyway. So we got to find better ways to get that thing done when filling out a schedule.
Yeah, I mean, this week there's some interesting matchups, I think. Holy Cross, Boston College. Holy Cross is on a 2 or 3 game win streak against FBS opponents.
What Boston College did.
Yeah. I mean, so that was interesting. I think looking through New Hampshire at Central Michigan. New Hampshire's been a pretty good team. Central Michigan, just scrolling through here. I mean, oh God, it's just like out. I mean, Southern Illinois, Northern Iowa. That's happened before. I could possibly see that one. And then, oh God, I mean, Cal Poly, San Jose State would be an interesting one to see possibly happen. And then, I mean, man, like outside of that one, I mean, Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah, I mean, Southeastern Louisiana, South Alabama could be 1-4. I mean, that's kind of you guys. What did you guys almost catch them about 2 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, South isn't. Even though I will say South has gotten a new coach since I think you guys played him, the guy from Indiana, the D coordinator, a lot better, I think, than they once were. And then, I mean, more. Okay, let me ask you, Coach. We saw Morgan State knock off Richmond. Akron is not that good. Could Morgan give Akron a run? Okay, they got to fix their offense. I agree with you. I'm just going to say that, but that's a game that I think they maybe can give them a small run for their money.
If they can keep it, if they can keep it 24 and under, and give their offense, the short field, get some turnovers, we know that defense is going to play. it's got an opportunity to be close. I don't expect to see 50 to nothing.
No. A good one, Coach. FAMU, South Florida.
Interesting to see how FAMU comes back after such a high. Is it going to be a drop, or are they going to continue on? And again, that's another one that's doable.
Yeah, and then the final one, they were one play away from doing it this weekend. This might be my heart team this year, where I just root for them, like, because I've talked about them. Albany to Hawaii.
Hey, it really depends on when they get out there. And what they allow the kids to do. You know, are we going to do this as a vacation bowl game? Or are we going to do this as, you know, we're trying to win the game and we're going to give you after the game to do what you got to do, you know, that kind of thing. So it's going to be on their scheduling and the travel itinerary that they keep.
Man, so Coach, man, great show again, man. Week 1's finally here. I had a blast up in Notre Dame, man. The highlights on the channel, pictures should be coming out tomorrow. Check out the website. We got a lot of content coming. My top 25 ballot, my takeaways, winners and losers in article form. I got Timothy Rosario, who's now a contributor for the Bluebloods, man. He'll be dropping some stuff tomorrow. So the website will be busy, thebluebloodcfb.com, man. And also, real quick again, NFL season, college football season started. Go hit up DraftKings, promo code Bluebloods, man. A lot of special deals for them, man. Get on some of these specials and earn you some money this football season. Coach, man, final words for the week 1 recap.
Man, college football is here. It's in full swing, man. Once you get that first kickoff, that first week down, man, it goes fast. Enjoy it. We're going to see if we can come up with a formidable showing at Stephen F. Austin this week, man. Really excited about it. Had an opportunity to get those guys last year. We kind of let it go. So, you know, really excited about that, man. And I think the early stages of college football is not disappointing.
It's definitely not. I mean, Stephen F. Austin played a pretty good game. I want to say against Troy.
Yep, Troy.
Yeah, they were competitive for the first half, I feel like, and then, you know, Troy was just deep as an FBS team. Yeah, you know how it is. I mean, it is on that. But guys, make sure to go to tune into Alcorn State this weekend, man, as they go upset Stephen F. Austin on the road. Probably talk a little bit about that game on Thursday. Me and Coach will probably move back to Thursday night, man. I won't have a Thursday night game this week, if I'm not mistaken. I will fly out, going up to Brookings, South Dakota State, Montana State this weekend. I cannot wait for that trip. But guys, say that again.
Going to South Dakota, what airport do you fly into?
Sioux Falls.
Sioux Falls.
It's about, I think, 45 minutes to an hour away. Yeah, it's not too bad. I got me a rental car because, listen, Brookings doesn't have an airport, obviously. It's Brookings, South Dakota. They got like 3 hotels in that city. So I'm flying into Sioux Falls on Friday. I get there about 12. I'm staying in Sioux Falls and then just driving up that morning because the game kicks off, I want to say 6 p.m. Central Time. So I got all day to get up there, go tailgate. I know a few guys up there. I'm probably going to go check out the tailgate with them. And then, man, we'll see what the next, I haven't made any plans past week 2. So we'll see. I don't like to make plans until we see who's good, man. I don't want to go to a matchup where it's 0-2 versus 0-3. Like, that's just not my thing. I got to go to the good games and all that. So we'll see what's going on.
Tailgate menu. I gotta know.
What? On the South Dakota State?
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Okay, they had a massive tailgate at the FCS National Championship game.
Okay.
Massive. I mean, they were grilling. I mean, listen, and I said this. I don't know if you were on the show. I might have been by myself at that point on that one. Bro, I don't know what they feed those guys up in South Dakota. Every single person I ran into was like 6'3" to 6'7" with a beard and looks like they've been benching cows their whole life. Listen, obesity does not exist in South Dakota. Everyone looks like a 5-star offensive lineman up there. It is ridiculous. Like, you've seen me. I'm 6'1". Like, I'm a bigger dude. I don't feel small next to a lot of people. I went to that tailgate. I left because I was mad that I was so small compared to everybody. It was ridiculous. I was looking people in the chest.
Hey, so before we get out of here, I got to know, was there anybody frying catfish up there?
Oh, probably not. No, I think when you look at South Dakota State tailgates, listen, man, they probably went out there, killed a bison right beforehand, got bison burgers over there. It seemed like a lot of hamburgers. There was some barbecue, but nah, man, it's the best tailgate I've ever been to. Mr. Kincaid at Alcorn State, man. Listen, that Jackson State Alcorn game last year, we had to get there early, coach. I was on the stretch at like
I remember,
4:35 for that game.
yeah, I remember you
Bro,
texting.
Mr. Kincaid had breakfast, cooked it for a while, served it, had tables. You went through, found a table, sat down, ate. You got to come back for lunch, had like snacks in between, and then had a whole full dinner course at the end of the game too. It was ridiculous. I don't know how much money they spend on tailgates, but Mr. Kincaid, you know what, on college game day when they do like the feature tailgate and everything, they bring the food up. If
Yeah,
Mr. Kincaid is not on college game day within the next 10 years, that's going to be my one thing. If I ever make it there, my one contractual stipulation is we're going to Alcorn State and Mr. Kincaid is feeding college game day.
that
Look, he's in the chat. Shout out to Mr. Kincaid, man.
they would not be disappointed.
No, best tailgate experience. Listen, best tailgate experience I've been to. I think you got to give them credit. Southern has an underrated one. I will say, when I went to Southern, they had some good tailgates down there too. And listen, I'm a Southern guy anyway, and I'm from Mobile. Seafood hits different for me anyway because I'm from Mobile, live on the water. Good seafood's a way to my heart, and man, Southern, they can cook some seafood.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I'm a Florida guy, so I love it as well. Um,
Oh
I'm gonna let you end the show with, and I saw it and I thought about you, but I knew you were out and it was game day for me. Home of Mardi Gras,
yeah,
South Alabama.
goated uniform combo. Pettiness on a million. Pettiness on a million. And listen, if there's anybody listening or that I run to that can get me a replica of that helmet, a full size replica, I will pay whatever I need to. I will pay whatever I need to. I need that helmet.
You came to mind, and I'm like, I don't know if he's catching this. He's up there with the Four Horsemen and the Touchdown God and all that stuff in South Bend. But he really needs to see this. So I'm glad you got a chance to catch that.
Shout out to South Bend though, coach. They sold out that stadium for Tennessee State.
That's big time.
They're one an empty seat in the house, and they do a thing. Okay, the atmosphere is like a little bit different. Every single touchdown, they do the push-up thing where they scored 56. So it was like 7 push-ups, 14 push-ups, 21 push-ups, all that. So they did like 200, 300 push-ups in the game. Not just the mascot does it. The whole crowd, especially the student section, they pick up somebody and they start like bench pressing them in the crowd. And it's the wildest thing to see in person with like the whole stadium all pressing like children and frat boys and I mean, it's crazy. That was the wildest thing I've seen in person.
That was dope. That's dope.
It's crazy. But guys, man, appreciate y'all tuning in and listening, man. Hit the like button now. And if you're watching the replay, the audio replay available on all podcast platforms tonight. It's already 11:48, so it should be up sometime. I got to upload it after this. Remember, hit up DraftKings, promo code Bluebloods. Me and Coach will be back on Thursday night. Get with you all at the time, probably about 9 o'clock. We always go late with our shows. But guys, for Coach Fred, for myself, and for the Bluebloods, man, we out for right now.